Hey, race fan, Brian Davis races, and you can too. This video is super interesting to me. Switching out of TrainerRoad, trying something completely different, leaving TrainerRoad, moving on to a private coach. So that's what we are going to do. And I'm gonna walk you through my thought process, my why, and what I'm hoping to accomplish by using a private coach. But before I do that, I have one last ramp test to wrap up my last 8 weeks of TrainerRoad Sweet Spot Base using the step test. So I'm gonna go hammer that out, and then we're gonna talk a little bit while I do that about the data, what I am finding with TrainerRoad, and why I'm making the switch. All right, I'm gonna suit up, and we're gonna see how the test goes. All right, race fam, let's get into it. Why am I making the change from TrainerRoad to a coach? So the thing with TrainerRoad, their tagline is make you a faster cyclist, right? So I get that, and I definitely feel they provided that over the past 2 years. They definitely made me a faster cyclist. But at what cost? The cost was this. The burnout last fall was real. It was significant, and it was frightening to me. I love the bike. I'm passionate about the bike. Like, almost every decision in my life has something to do with how it will affect me and a bike. So for me to face burnout last fall and have thoughts in my head of, maybe I'm done with cycling. Maybe this is it. I don't touch my bike for 6 weeks and I didn't care. That's a huge problem, and that scared the bejesus out of me. So what can I do to fix that but still get faster and still break through and be able to ride with the guys in a breakaway or the lead group? And I started really questioning TrainerRoad. And one of the things that I questioned was the high volume approach. And then after all this, then Dylan Johnson's video came out, and I thought, that really crystallizes my fears with TrainerRoad. I guess it validates my fears that it's just too much of the same stuff. Yeah. So prior to his video coming out, I'd already made an agreement with my coach, Zach, to work with him. So when I posted a video a few weeks ago, I mentioned that I was thinking about a coach, or I was kind of frustrated with how things were going and shaping up for this year already. I was putting in tons of hours in the basement, and guys are still just destroying me in races. And I'm thinking, they're doing half or a third of the hours that I'm doing, and they're kicking my butt. Now, genetically, I am not gifted, so some of it is that. But then also, it could be the training that I'm doing. It could be something that, decisions that I'm making that are within my control. So that's what I went out to fix. And the way I fixed that was Zach reached out to me after seeing that video and said, hey, have you ever thought about working with me? And then actually another viewer reached out and offered to work with me as well. I ended up choosing Zach because he's close. He's in Milwaukee. I thought we could bring him on the show. I could ride together with him. I could see him at races. So that'll be fun. So Zach is going to be joining us. I'll ask him a few questions at the end of the interview, but I just wanted to address why I'm making this change and why it's important to me. So thinking about TrainerRoad's high volume plan, and the shortcomings there is interesting timing, because Dylan's video come out, and then just today I got an email from TrainerRoad that they're releasing something called adaptive training in their program, which sounds great. And at first I thought, oh, well, this is amazing. They're already ahead of this thing. This is great. But then I started thinking, again, I don't know what it is yet other than it's called adaptive training, but I started thinking, well, if the goal of adaptive training is to get me to these plans that you already have in existence, then I've done that. I've been really compliant with TrainerRoad. I blasted through all the workouts, almost all the workouts at 100%, right? Like, I hardly ever miss, almost never miss. So what are you going to adapt me to then? I don't understand. So I think about that, and I think, well, there's Xert, I don't know how you say it. There's Xert that does some of this machine learning, AI-based thing. There's TrainerRoad is getting into it now. And of course, that's where all these things are going. But guess what, guys? We already have the technology to do this. This is not new. It's called a coach. They're humans with brains. So that's what I chose to do. Now, obviously, there's a huge cost difference between a coach and TrainerRoad. I totally understand that. I am in a position to be able to pay for coaching. It's important enough in my life to be able to do it. So I'm going to do it. Why wouldn't I get the best training that I can afford and the resources that I have to be able to pay for that? And it's something that I'm this passionate about. Then I'm going to do it. So that's why I've decided to make a change to the coach. Now, I look back on TrainerRoad and I think like, okay, was my time wasted there? No, not at all. I mean, I got 2 years of really good confidence building sweet spot work. But I felt trapped in that high volume plan. Like, like I said before, if you're compliant, then you're going to get the gains. If you're not getting the gains, it's because you weren't compliant. But if you are getting burnt out, it's because you didn't listen to your body. So if you're burnt out, it's your fault. It feels really, I feel trapped, a real catch-22 there. So that's why I want to work with a coach, because I don't have to deal with these mysteries myself. That's Zach's problem to figure out. I just have to open my app and figure out what I need to do that day. So avoiding burnout is just as much a motivation for me as it is to go faster and perform better in races. So those are my reasons. Let's talk to Zach and learn a little bit more about his approach. I know there's a raging debate between polarization and sweet spot. So Zach definitely falls more on the polarization camp. I've avoided polarization for a few years. People have brought it up in the comments tons of times, and I thought, well, it just seems sort of boring to ride at that level. Or I had these misconceptions that it was tons of hours at zone 2, and that's not quite what it is. So let's talk to Zach. Hey Zach, thanks for joining me on the channel. I really appreciate it today. In the video, I was explaining to folks about sort of my thought process to make this change. When you saw the video where I mentioned that one little sentence about maybe thinking about getting a coach, was there, even before that, because I know you've watched some of the videos before, was there something you thought in my experience or even in that video that you thought like, man, this guy's missing this one thing?
With you and with a lot of people is that you just train, and you just think this is what's going to do it for me. And my guess was that you were overtrained and under-rested. And then the longer I followed you, the more I heard about TrainerRoad, and then the more details I heard about your plan, I was like, oh man, like you need some more rest. And I was like, I really think that's going to help bring you to that next level. And as a cyclist, we're so motivated. We just want to ride hard all the time. And to have that outside perspective, to have some sort of an authority figure like a coach to tell you you should rest today, or you should ride no more than an hour today, to put that plan into action, it really helps to have that outside perspective there. And being in Wisconsin, I always know that the Midwest connection is good. So I figured I'd reach out because I know they're hugely popular and so many people had been following them for so long. And so many people were getting burnt out. And because I didn't know the details of the plan, because they keep that, I mean, of course, they're not going to give away the plans for free. Coach, it just blew my mind. I was like, that's the toughest training you could do. Even the guys that ride the Tour de France, they don't do intervals 6 days in a row. It was just crazy to me.
I think I'm just burnt out and cooking myself. And walk me through your philosophy when it comes to training.
A lot of that is mostly related to their goals. So a lot of the goals are crits, road races, time trials. In the US, even at an elite level, there's nothing more than 4 hours. So with a polarized approach, you're really targeting that high intensity, which is what you're going to see in races. The only clients that I would really do more of that zone 2 endurance and sweet spot approach would be, I have a couple Ironman clients. So something where you are training for 8 hours at a time. That's when the high intensity doesn't really matter. It's just being able to push a decent amount of power for a very, very long time. Whereas in a crit, you got to train to not get dropped. You got to train to sprint up a hill. You got to train to sprint at the finish. In a road race, same thing. Even if you're training for climbs, the longest ones in the US are, for most people, 15, 20 minutes, unless you live in California or Colorado. Most of these climbs are going to be 5-10 minutes at the most. Short, like a key part of the polarized approach for most of my clients. And then resting in between is important too, because the longest stage race in the US is, for road racing, it's like Redlands and Gila, so 5 days at the most. If you're doing Tour of America's Dairyland, it's 10 days. It's all crits, so it's kind of a stage race, but it's not a ton of volume at the same time. So even with that approach, it's a lot of high intensity. It's not stacking 5-6 days of intervals in a row, something like that.
From the outside perspective, your own personal performance, but then also your involvement with USA Cycling's E-team and all that stuff. So that was part that was fascinating to me, watching guys like you and Jaden here locally in Wisconsin, like how you're able to maintain these incredibly hard efforts and then figure out somehow to recover, train, but still progress. And that was completely befuddling to me, and something that's, I mean, just looking at TrainerRoad, it would be totally incongruent with a way to do that on TrainerRoad, because your TrainerRoad, you know, you're right, it strikes a chord when you said that. It's like, it feels more like a Ironman training and less like what we're doing, because in a couple different ways, more like the training, but then also because the whole season points to like one critical race, and that's just not the case with crit racing.
I used to do a lot of zone 2 endurance training. That was the majority of my hours, and I would do 15 to 20 hours a week. For pretty much the past year now, it's been an average of 8 to 10 hours a week, and pretty much all on the trainer, tons of high intensity efforts, and then 40-minute. Fascinating because, of course, like my sprint has gotten better, my anaerobic efforts have gotten better, but also my 20 and 30-minute power has gone up too. And I haven't really been doing like structured threshold intervals or anything like that. I really do think that for me personally, it was coming from that big endurance base where I already had that aerobic background. And then all of a sudden I was working on these anaerobic components that I really didn't focus on when I was doing that long endurance training. So that kind of ties into, some people need 2 or 3 days of high intensity intervals to feel good. If they go a month without intervals, it's going to take them a long time to get back into race shape. Whereas some people can do endurance training for a month and then they'll do their first race in February and they'll absolutely crush it. So it's, my job as a coach is really to find that, no pun intended, sweet spot for each athlete, where some people prefer that high intensity approach, some people are finding out what works best for you. And for you, with everything I know about your past and your training and what's worked well for you, I really do think that changing it up and going to a more polarized approach, which sounds like what you've done maybe a few years ago, may be better for your fitness, especially because you're coming off this huge base of aerobic and sweet spot fitness.
All right, race fam, there you have it. You heard from me, you heard from the coach. This is why I'm making this change. I want to get faster, but I really want to avoid burnout. That's kind of what it all comes down to. So I'm just listening to TrainerRoad's new podcast today, and they're talking about their release of the adaptive training methodology and technology that they're using, and that sounds awesome. All of it sounds really, really cool. But if I think about, like, what are they trying to emulate with all that technology? What's the goal of all that technology? The goal is to give you a coach-like experience for $20 a month. Awesome. That's a great business plan. But if I'm not price sensitive to the $20 versus the coaching price, I can just get the coaching without having to deal with technology hurdles. So that's what I'm going to do. I communicate with Zach every day after every workout, and I let him know how I'm feeling. We have conversations about weight. We have conversations about nutrition. We have conversations about when I'm racing and changing the plan. And that's all the extra nuance I want, that I feel I'm missing, that's going to help me get faster. So I'm excited about this season to get faster. I'm excited to show you a really good insight as to what it's like to work with a coach versus what it's like to be on TrainerRoad in the past. I think you're going to get a lot of value out of these videos, so please make sure that you're subscribed to the channel, like this video for more content, and then hit the little bell icon to be notified when I release new stuff. Guys, I am super excited for this season. So also, if you do get a chance to help me afford this coach, if you do get a chance, go to followhow.com, check out the socks, Alpaca socks over there. They're awesome socks. If you doubt me, just go read the reviews. You have my word, I have never culled a review off of that website. They are all 100% legitimate customers who have bought the socks. So go check those out. We'll have more stock coming in soon, but we have a couple socks right now, so hurry up and buy them before we run out again. All right, thanks for watching the channel. I appreciate you all. Okay, bye.